Sports Complex. We'd love to see you there.
It looks like a messy night for football across the valley. Things won't improve much tonight, but tomorrow everything changes. We'll check your First One 5 forecast. The Channel 5 News at 5 begins right now.
From the Valley's News Channel, this is Channel 5 News at 5.
Breaking news from across the border. Mexican authorities found 6 bags of human remains in the southern state of Guerrero.
It's believed the remains belong to the 43 students reported missing back in September. Our Kirk Chason is tracking this breaking headline from our newsroom. Kirk, what have you learned?
Right, the Mexican government thinks they have located the remains of the 43 students who went missing in September. Now this is near where the students disappeared. The remains were located near a river in Cocula. After confessions by 3 suspects, the suspects members of the Guerreros Unidos cartel, they admit they executed the students. That's after city police detained the students and handed them over to the drug gang.
The former mayor of Iguala gave the order to the city police to detain the students traveling in the bus.
6 people died in a police attack before the students were detained. About 74 people have been detained and questioned in this case. We're still following the Mexican government feeds on this and going through that to get more details, and we will have that for you coming up at 6. Live in the newsroom, Kirk Chason, Channel 5 News at 5.
Back here at home, new developments in a kidnapping case out of Pharr. The victim, a woman, was abducted about a block from her home.
Channel 5's Erica Proffer is live in our Hidalgo County newsroom with the latest on this case. Erica.
Elia Margarita Flores was driving a truck loaned to her. She was kidnapped. The man who loaned her that truck killed. Police are now trying to figure out their connection, their history. Elia Margarita Flores has long black hair, and what you're looking at is a mugshot, but police tell us she does not have a serious criminal history. All we could find was a DWI conviction. Flores is missing tonight. Police believe she is alive, but in danger. Flores was driving west on Sioux Road Wednesday, October 29th, when men in a white Ford F-150 cut her off in traffic. The 3 men got out of the truck, took her at gunpoint. One man was described as stocky. He wore a camouflage hunting cap. So now fast forward to this past Wednesday, November 5th. Police found 26-year-old Victor Garcia dead near 9 Mile Line and Ware Road. Investigators say he loaned Flores that black truck she was driving before she was kidnapped.
At this point, we don't have any motive. We were hoping that contacting Mr. Garcia, we would be able to link them and to find out what it is that they were looking for when they took her. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those details at this time.
Flores was last seen wearing a red shirt and black legging pants. If you have any information, you can call Pharr Crime Stoppers. Their number 787-8477. We went to where Flores lived. We wanted to find the family. They weren't there. Right now, we're still going through our interviews that we got with the neighbors. You can tune in tonight at 6 for those interviews. Live in the Hidalgo County Newsroom, Erica Proffer, Channel 5 News at 5.
A 14-year-old boy who was on life support after he was hit by a truck died. This is an update to a report last night at 10:30. The accident happened on Ingle Road, just north of Edinburgh. Investigators say a Ford F-150 hit the 14-year-old and 2 others. They, a woman and a man, are out of the hospital this afternoon. The driver of the truck stopped to help them. Right now, he's not facing any charges. State troopers are still investigating.
Rain beginning to move back into the valley after a brief break across much of the area this afternoon. Here is your First One 5 Doppler network, and take a look at it. It's just kind of messy out there again. You're starting to see some light to moderate rain moving in. A lot of it is very light, but it's out there making things a little slippery again. And because the ground's pretty saturated, just add a little rain, get some puddles in a hurry, and that could make it for messy parking at your Friday night football games if you park in a grassy area. Temperature's also cool, and it will stay cool all evening. We're in the low 60s right now by football time, right at 60 degrees, and in the 50s by the end of the game. We'll take a close look at the First One 5 forecast for the weekend, which does include sunshine. That update in a few minutes.
This just into the Channel 5 newsroom. A student behind today's lockdown at a Brownsville high school is now arrested. It's a story we first broke online at krgv.com. The 17-year-old is facing drug charges, and his name has not yet been released. City and school district police were called to Pace High School after the school received a tip A BB gun holster and marijuana were found on the student during a search. Police cleared the campus after no weapon was found. No one was hurt.
The race for one spot on Monte Alto School Board ended in a tie on election night, and right now Hidalgo County election officials are recounting the votes for Trustee Place 7. The candidates in the race, Ricardo Lopez and Johnny Herrera, both men received 264 votes each. Well, the Donna City Council will meet next week to approve a date for the mayoral runoff election. City Secretary Martha Alvarado says the council will meet at 5:30 on Wednesday afternoon to officially canvass the votes. Council members will then approve a runoff election date. They are considering the date of Tuesday, December 2nd. Donna's current mayor David Simmons and former city councilwoman Irene Munoz are vying for the position.
We are learning more about the death of a woman killed in September. A preliminary autopsy revealed Diana Ramos Pierce was shot in the head 3 times. Her husband, Donald Edward Pierce, is accused of killing her and their 4-year-old son, William. Donald Pierce pled not guilty in court yesterday. This all happened at their home along Frankfort Street. Investigators did not release the preliminary autopsy results for the little boy, they said, because he's a minor. The bodies were found in the family's backyard among debris and tall grass. Pierce is locked up right now. Hundreds of troops were just deployed overseas to help battle the terror group ISIS, but those troops will not be used for combat. There are working orders next.
A destructive virus dropped into government computer networks years ago was just discovered. On the way at 5, we look into what the software is capable of.
Breaking news. Breaking stories. This is Channel 5 News with Oscar Adame, Melissa Correa, and First Warn 5 Weather with Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith. This is Channel 5 News at 5.
Over $1,520 only at Lax.
This afternoon, President Obama authorized U.S. military to deploy up to 1,500 more troops to Iraq. The president says he wants to send them as part of a mission to take down ISIS. He's also asking Congress for more than $5 billion to help fund the mission. The White House added, though, the troops won't serve in combat roles. Instead, they will train, advise, and assist Iraqi military and also Kurdish forces fighting ISIS. Additional personnel will also be used in operations at Iraqi military facilities outside of Baghdad and Erbil. Well, the White House won't confirm or deny a report that it reached out to Iran in the fight against ISIS. Sources say in the letter the president said both countries shared interest in defeating ISIS. Administration officials did say there is some communication between the U.S. and Iran, but that it all goes through mediators in Iraq. Now, some lawmakers were critical of the outreach, saying it's outrageous to reach out to a known supporter of terrorism like Iran.
Would-be jihadi fighters are hopping on cruise ships to join ISIS. They're using the ships hoping to bypass intensified border checks at Turkey's airports. The trend is one of the main reasons Interpol is preparing to expand a pilot program called I Check It. That program allows airlines to bounce passenger information off Interpol's databases. Officials say Turkey is a main route used by extremists.
We know that the cruise ships about which we have information are cruise ships where the destination point is Turkey, and from Turkey to Iraq and or Syria. Other destinations beside that I can't share with you.
Noble also refused to say how many people might be involved. He's the outgoing Secretary General for Interpol. He's calling on countries to step up screening at all transportation hubs.
Well, a controversy is brewing over who killed Osama bin Laden, at least a revelation of who might have. Rob O'Neill, a former Navy SEAL, has come forward claiming he fired the fatal shot that killed the terror leader. O'Neill told the Washington Post that bin Laden died instantly. Navy commanders and former Navy SEALs warned the special ops community about going public.
He's sacrificed a lot in doing this, whether he is the real shooter or not. He's put a bullseye on his back that is bigger in a lot of ways than the bullseye that Osama bin Laden had on his.
Now, other members of SEAL Team 6 have chosen not to speak publicly about bin Laden's death and or any other member of a SEAL team. Navy commanders released a statement saying, "We do not abide willful or selfish disregard for our core values in return for public notoriety and financial gain." Well, this afternoon, there is a major new threat targeting the country's critical infrastructure.
Yeah, hackers invaded computer networks with one destructive program. ABC's Pierre Thomas is in Washington with more.
The nation's water treatment facilities, power plants, gas pipelines, all the things you need at home to function have been targeted, in many cases hacked. Government investigators have discovered hackers from overseas have penetrated computer systems serving some of the nation's most important utilities, planning malicious software that they've given the ominous name Black Energy. ABC News has learned this malicious software was put inside the computer systems years ago, but has only recently been discovered. This potential ticking time bomb has not been activated, but in theory, if it was, it could allow a hacker to use the internet to shut down a generator, open flood valves at a water treatment plant, or turn off a pipeline. We've obtained a Homeland Security bulletin that warns utility owners and operators to look for signs of compromise and to report any suspected intrusion immediately. Sources say hackers, possibly sponsored by the Russian government, are the prime suspects.
FAA just issued a critical alert. The entire network went down.
If you think this is fiction, something out of a movie, take a look at this tent. Homeland Security researchers hacking into this power generator caused it to self-destruct. Look again, it's shaking, smoking, screws are popping out.
Sources have been warning me for quite some time that we're in a new day where hackers can affect our lives from thousands of miles away. These potential threats are now hitting very close to home. Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Well, rain's moving back into the valley this evening. Likely will be with us for most of Friday night football, but by the weekend, things are going to change. When we come back, your first 1-5 forecast. We'll have
And now, First Warn 5 weather with Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith.
Hey folks, a lot of the valley actually had a dry period this afternoon with just cloudy skies and maybe a spit of drizzle here and there. But look at the mess that's coming up from the south as we speak. Yet another batch of rain that's going to keep things, well, overcast, drizzly, damp, even outright rain for a little while overnight tonight. I think by tomorrow, though, all this begins to move out, but we've still got to get through this next wave of activity that's coming across, just beginning to as we speak. Look at WeatherBug. To McAllen tonight at Lone Star National Bank up on the northeast side of town, 61 degrees. Winds are light and variable for the most part. The streets are just getting wet again as this new batch of rain just moving in. It's so far mainly light, so not a lot of big puddles, but it won't take much because of all the rain we've had the last couple of days. Let's go back to the maps, and once again, your radar shows that we have the satellite to that, and zoom out just a little bit and notice that we're just on the edge of this big batch of stuff coming up from the southwest. So it's just beginning. So if you're just headed out the door to a football game, take the raincoat, take whatever it is you need to enjoy the game without getting absolutely soaked, because some of the games are going to be pretty wet across the region tonight. Upper air low still sitting back here. It does eventually begin to move out tonight, and by tomorrow it gets to the east of us. And once that's to our east, then a dry flow comes in, a northwesterly flow in the upper atmosphere. You may not wake up the sunshine tomorrow, at least not across the entire valley, but as the day goes on, those clouds will break from west to east as that dry air builds in from the northwest. And by the end of the day, hopefully everybody gets to see a nice sunset tomorrow night. And Sunday looks like a gorgeous day. Cool start, 50s in the morning, 70s in the afternoon. Sunday looks gorgeous. Monday looks nice as well, but a little bit warmer with some patchy clouds just beginning to show up. Temperatures on Monday and Tuesday back up into the 80s. And then here comes another front. And this one, well, it doesn't look as wet as what we're dealing with now. It does look pretty chilly. A very strong air mass behind this front. Going to drop much of the nation about 20 degrees below normal, and we may experience that as well. Much cooler for the middle part of next week. So here's that batch of rain down to the south. Future track kind of sneaks it across overnight, and by tomorrow morning it's gone. Clear in the west, but still clouds in the east. As the day goes on, though, those clouds will eventually thin out as well, and everybody gets sunshine by the end of the day. And then tomorrow night we're mainly clear, and during the daytime on Sunday, just bright sunshine with dry conditions. That goes for Monday as well. The normal high is 83. Not going to get there until maybe Monday, about 82 on Monday. And the records, not even close. Currently, low 60s across the area, 64 at the beach, 62 in Weslaco, 62 also in Brownsville. Quick check of the rest of the state. Because of the clouds and the rain, we're about as cool as anybody. Everybody's in about the same boat, all the way up into the Panhandle. So for tonight, 53 periods of rain, especially early. And then tomorrow, clouds early, but then sunshine late in the day. It'll show up in the western part of the valley early, and then everybody gets it hopefully just in time for sunset. Sunday looks delightful, breezy and warm on Monday, warm again on Tuesday as the front gets close, and then windy and cooler Wednesday, Thursday. Lows drop in the 40s. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a day in the 50s the middle of next week. That's your updated First Warn 5 forecast.
New details on Ebola monitoring in Texas. The last of more than 175 people monitored for the disease will soon be released.
And the leading choice for the next attorney general was announced. But President Obama won't be making his nomination until next week. What's with the holdup? Stick with us, we'll tell you.
We have some new information in this afternoon on Ebola in Texas.
That's right. The last person monitored for Ebola in Dallas will be cleared at midnight. That person is a Texas Health Presbyterian hospital worker who handled Thomas Duncan's Ebola medical waste.
You might remember Duncan was the first person diagnosed with Ebola in the U.S. 177 people were being monitored after Texas Health Presbyterian treated Duncan.
2 of Duncan's nurses wound up with Ebola. They are now virus-free. And Oscar, the U.S. military named the 5 U.S. bases where American troops will be isolated after they finish their Ebola missions in West Africa.
Yeah, and one Texas base is where some of those soldiers going overseas are coming from. You have Fort Bliss, also Fort Hood in Texas, and then there's North Carolina, Washington, and Virginia bases there quarantining soldiers for 21 days. The 21-day isolation period is required for service members, but voluntary for Pentagon civilians. There is an exemption also for troops who go for short visits.
The World Health Organization released a 17-page manual about how to safely bury people who died from Ebola. The UN agency said the guidelines are part of an effort to reduce the likelihood that folks would contract Ebola from human remains. At least 1 in 5 infections are linked to burials. The guidelines give step-by-step advice to healthcare workers for both Christian and Muslim burials. The manual also recommends items touched by a patient be burned.
Something new in politics in Washington today. Loretta Lynch is expected to be named as President Obama's pick to succeed Eric Holder as Attorney General. Lynch is in her second stint as U.S. Attorney in New York. If confirmed, she would be the second woman to serve as Attorney General in the U.S. and the first African American to hold the post. Sources close to the president say he does not plan to make any nomination period until he returns from a trip to Asia next week. And the Supreme Court now agreeing to hear a new challenge to President Obama's health care law. The justices say they will decide whether the law authorizes subsidies that help millions of low and middle income people afford their health insurance premiums. A federal appeals court upheld IRS regulations that allow health insurance tax credits under the Affordable Care Act for consumers in all 50 states. Opponents argue that most of the subsidies are illegal. This is the second time the Supreme Court will take up Obamacare.
So you put up with the rain for one more night. Looks like tomorrow is a completely different situation. Take a look. We start the day with clouds, but we see sunshine by lunchtime. 73 for a high, mainly sunny by the end of the day. We'll look at that forecast for the weekend and each of the next 7 days when we come back.
Ultra, the superior light beer.
Channel 5 News is working to bring you more information on the news we broke at the top of the 5 o'clock newscast. Authorities reported that they found the remains of humans, and right now they believe they are the remains of the 43 Mexican students reported missing back in September.
And for Channel 5, also at Channel 5 News at 6, we're working to translate messages from the Mexican Attorney General. We are now waiting for word on how they plan to identify these remains. And also the Hidalgo County Sheriff says he's taking on problems he said began the moment the Hidalgo County Jail was built. How he plans to tackle that issue and a lot more coming up at 6.
Rain around all evening and most of the night, but it will end in the morning. And as it does, we'll eventually see sun kind of breaking out across the valley. We'll see it first in the west. We'll end up with sunshine, hopefully valley-wide by the end of the day. Sunday looks gorgeous. 52 for a low, 74 for a high. Back in the 80s early next week. And then another front. Late Tuesday, early Wednesday turns it windy and cooler. Once again, an update for you at 6.
If you go out to watch football, pack an umbrella.
Yeah. Be careful out in the road. Thanks for joining us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Channel 5 and Clark Knapp Honda.